Now in the second video, we have determined the exact roots of a quadratic function. So this term exact root, well, that means that we're not going to work out the square roots. We're not going to take them down to a decimal form. And if I can just demonstrate that here with an example, just use a calculator to approximate square root 2. So we would take our calculator and say square root 2. We get an approximate answer when we round it. 1.41. Usually it's what we'd use, no more than about 2 decimal places. See how long the number continues, and it doesn't end there. That if our calculator were more exact, it would continue on further. So when we round it, we're leaving all these extra digits here that would make a difference in an answer if you're looking for precision. So in some cases you want to have the exact answer, which is square root 2. So you have to be able to reduce down your square roots, and we covered this in the chapter on radicals. So simplify the exact root of square root 80. And remember now, to get the exact root, we have to try and find the biggest perfect square that's a factor of the radical, or radicand. In other words, you have 80. What's the biggest square root that goes in to multiply to give you 80? And remember, your perfect squares are 4, 9, 16, 25, 36, and they continue on. So 2 squared, 3 squared, 4 squared, 5 squared, 6 squared, 49, 64, 81, and 100, and they can keep going. So 16 times 5 will multiply to give us root 80. So we can break this down to 16 times 5. And again, 16 is the biggest perfect square that's a factor of 80. You could try 4, and 4 would work, but then you'd have to keep working out that answer. Now we take square root of each number, and this is multiplication in the middle. So square root 16 is 4. And then we say square root 5. That can't be worked out any further. That's as far as you can take it. And now with 27, factors of 27, 9 times 3. Square root of 9 is 3. But we cannot do the square root of the last number. So we've done the square root of the first number, which was 3. We cannot do the square root of this number, so it stays root 3. And we'll apply that now with 2 examples here. Now I'll set them up in standard form, and then I'm going to use the quadratic formula. Well, that's equals. And before we get into this one, realize that you would need to multiply here. So 4 times x, 4x squared, 4x times 3, negative 12x. This 7 needs to come over, so it's going to be plus 7. Your a, b, and c values. 1, negative 2, negative 17. Here, your a value is 4, your b value is negative 12, and your c value is 7. So I'm not going to go through step by step applying formula. You've seen that in the last example. When you come back, you'll see that it's done there. Now the 2 examples have been worked out. You need to remember the quadratic formula. So negative b plus or minus square root of b squared subtract 4ac all divided by 2a. So you input your a, b, and c values. And you see that here. If you can't follow where the values came from, then you need to ask me in class. But I think if you went through the example yourself, you would see it. And you're just picking off each of these values and inputting them here. Be careful to note that when you have a negative times a negative, it does work out to be a positive. And what we have now is 2 plus or minus square root 72 divided by 2. You need this as an exact answer, so you find the biggest factor of 72 that's a perfect square. So that's 36 times 2. Square root 36 is 6. Square root of 2 can't be done, so you leave it there. Now we have a common factor, 2, 6, and 2. Those three numbers can all be divided by 3. So you can only divide the numbers on the outside. You cannot divide underneath the root sign. So 2 divided by 2 is 1, 6 divided by 2 is 3, and you do not do this step here. You don't say 2 divided by root 2. So here's your answer. It's 1 plus root 3 and 1 subtract root 3. So that's a plus or minus symbol. And very similar over here when we do the next calculation. You pick out your A, B, and C values, put them into the equation. Here you have a subtraction that you need to do, and you've made a mistake if the number underneath the root sign here turns out to be negative. Now down here, 12, 4, and 8, common factor, they can all be divided by 4. 12 divided by 4 is 3, 4 divided by 4 is 1. Let me leave that out, we don't write it in there. And 8 divided by 4 is 2. So those are your two answers for this question.